The 2025 draft is heating up. It's just around the corner, Tiger fans, and I thought it was time to actually do some player comparisons with regards to who we're going to take with our relevant picks. So we'll start with pick number 3, because that's our very first pick, which is not a bad spot to be in. And there's been a lot of talk about multiple players, but there seems to be 2 players that are most strongly linked to being at our spot come this selection. So for the player comparison for today, we're going with Sullivan Robey and Cooper Duff-Tytler, which you can see on the screen now. So the tail of the tape, Sullivan Robey, 192 centimetres. He's a forward mid. Dual threat is his main point of difference, and improvements would be exposure. I guess with coming in later into the program for Eastern Rangers, there's always going to be that question mark on exposure at the more elite level, and missing the champs and things like that. But did step up on the big stage in the grand final, and it reads as though that recruiters have had their eye on him for a while and was just waiting for him to explode, which he ended up doing. Cooper Duff-Tytler is another player that could be there at our pick 3, which we'll use for the comparison today. Height, 200 centimetres, position, ruck forward. Main point of difference is his athleticism, which was on display all season in the Coates League. And again at the Combine, we're putting up some ridiculous numbers that big men just really shouldn't be able to do, showing a good blend of speed and endurance, which is always a really attractive profile to have for any type of footballer coming in. And improvements would be the ruck craft side of the game. So I guess with those 2 players potentially at our picks at pick 3, we'll take a bit more of an in-depth look at each of them because it's a big decision for the football club in which way they want to go. 2 very talented players. One has been touted in the top 5, top 3 for quite some time, in obviously Cooper Duff-Tytler. And then Sullivan Robey is obviously this year's major draft bolter who shot the lights out in the back half of the year. So Sullivan Robey, and looking at some of the analysis off the Rookie Me website, averaged 19.7 disposals in his 9 games for the Eastern Rangers. And what's interesting with those disposal numbers is he wasn't playing as a midfielder for that whole time. So you got to remember he was playing half forward for quite a substantial portion of this. He still had a really good ability to rack up possessions even as a half forward, which was really interesting. And then there was obviously that game where he went to the midfield, got 40 plus disposals, and everything kind of went boom from there. He kicked 18 goals in 9 games, which is an awesome return. Averaged 6.2 marks a game. And this is, I guess, due to a combination of his forward work and his ability to read the play really well around the ground and getting into the next position for his teammates to feed the ball out to him when they're exiting the back line. It was actually the one thing that he did. I thought he did really, really well. One of the summaries was Robey has quickly built a strong reputation, exhibiting a steep rate of development and several AFL traits in a short time. That relatively small sample size, albeit of extraordinary quality, will work against Robey to an extent as recruiters begin to watch back tape, especially with the lack of national champs or VFL exposure. Clubs usually search for bankability at the top end, but with Robey's unique points of difference and ready-made nature, the allure of upside will be too difficult to ignore. Clubs like Richmond and Essendon will be all over him with their several picks in the top 10 amid what is otherwise a janky order littered with restricted talent access. Robey may well be the 3rd best non-aligned player available. And I suppose a lot of talk has been made about not seeing him at champs and the exposure side of thing being maybe one of the weaknesses, I guess you could call it. But when I sort of think about stepping up in big moments, you look at Steele Sidebottom in his draft year, how he stepped up in the grand final with 10 goals, and that kind of really put himself on the map. Robey, in a lot of ways, has done the same thing with the final series that he had was quite outstanding, and to cap off the grand final with 4 goals, playing through a bit of duress as well with the collarbone, of course. I think that ticks boxes as well. Like equal, maybe not as high as the champs playing in the champs game, but playing in that type of moment, in that type of exposure with everyone watching and standing up in that moment, I think counts for something. Looking at Robey's strengths, clean hands, mobility, physicality, power, scoreboard impact, and size. Improvements, decision-making, and exposure, which we mentioned before, the exposure side of things. But from a Richmond perspective, you can see Sullivan Robey fitting into a half-forward/midfield rotation. I guess there's a bit of an argument to be had. Do we have players already of a similar size and stature when you talk about Lawler and Josh Smiley, who I know we haven't seen at AFL level yet, but very similar I suppose. I mean, Smiley's got a bit more height, but similar types of build. I guess when you think long term, though, to have potentially someone like Robey in a 1-2 punch rotating off half forward with Sam Lawler, I think is a really strong thing to have. If you look at the top sides, like your Brisbane's and your Gold Coast and their midfield depth and their players who can play dual positions, I think this is where it can turn into a bit of a strength. And having Robey, who's 192 centimetres currently, he still believes he's got a bit more growth left. So he could get to a 194. So to have him sort of drifting into the forward line, strong marks, has done a power of work on his goal kicking, I think it could be a good little 1-2 combination. So that's why I think it's an appealing prospect. And the ceiling's quite high as well, I feel, albeit with limited exposure. So that's Sullivan Robey on where he would fit in on the Richmond side of things. If we turn our attention to Cooper Duff-Tytler, who has been widely renowned as one of the top-end prospects for the best part of, I reckon, a year and a half, 2 years now in some ways. 200 centimetre, and people use the unicorn very rarely, but his blend of aerobic capacity, his speed, his cleanliness below the knees with the ball carrying, the ball use and disposal, it's a pretty unique blend, and it's something that a lot of clubs are going to be dearly after. So looking at the statistics on Draft Rookie Me, in the Coates Talent League for Calder Cannons, average 20.4 disposals, 17.4 hitouts, 5.4 marks a game. It's quite extraordinary. I think he only played the 5 games in the Coates League, but that is ultra impressive. He kicked 5 goals. Obviously played some VFL games as well for Essendon, which was really good too, and they were super impressed. So we can sort of mix it with playing with men. And then in Vic Metro, he averaged 14.5 disposals, 14 hitouts, 2.8 tackles, and 4 marks per game from the 4 games, kicking 3 goals and getting 7 clearances. It's no secret that he's going to be a dynamic player, and the new ruck rules coming in probably assist him and elevate him a little bit as well, especially for the centre throw-up, where rucks can no longer cross the line to engage in a wrestle. It's more about being athletic and getting a jump. So already being at 200 centimetres is an advantage. I don't think his vertical leap was a good reflection of, I suppose, what you'd want it to be at for someone of his size. And his ruck craft is something that needs to be worked on. So getting into an AFL environment where you've got those teachers and those learnings and things to happen, I think is going to be a really positive thing for him. Looking at the strengths, athleticism quite clearly is out of this world. Cleanliness, follow-up work, mobility, upside, and versatility. Improvements, physicality, and ruck craft. Duff-Tytler's versatility is one thing that will be at the forefront of recruiters' minds. When it came to his VFL debut for Essendon, he was positioned up forward as the second tall and was able to demonstrate his ability to play as an effective key forward, positioning well one-on-one to win free kicks and present well on a lead. In the postseason campaign for the Cannons, where he was positioned forward, he caused plenty of problems for his opponents, spreading and breaking away on numerous occasions inside 50 to provide an option. He was named at centre-half forward in the All-Australian team for the Under-18 champs, despite being the number 1 ruck for Vic Metro. When it comes to the club that takes him, this will give the coaching staff something to strongly consider as to how he can break into the side as soon as possible. I suppose this has been a really difficult pick for me because the reasons kind of just mentioned there are the same reasons why I'm unsure if he's the right fit for us, but he could very well be the best available player for us, and that may reign supreme, and that's okay. I just worry how he's going to fit into our forward line as his secondary position when we've just drafted Jonty Fall, Harry Armstrong, Tom Sims. We've still got Tom Lynch. I just can't map out in my mind how that works, because the reality is, as much as we all believe he's going to be a future number 1 ruckman of the competition, he's not going to be able to do that straight away because he needs to improve physically and develop and grow and all that kind of stuff. So we're probably still a couple of years away from that happening. So it's, what does he do in the meantime? If we can find a way to fit him in though, and you can look into a crystal ball for 4 or 5 years down the track when Duff-Tytler and Sims are fully developed, they've got all their bodies filled out, they've got 3 or 4 pre-seasons under their belt. It's a pretty handy idea to have as a 1-2 ruck combo who can then go and rest forward and be equaling as damaging. And I guess similar to Sims in some ways is how clean he is below his knees picking up the ball. His follow-up work is exceptional for someone of his size. I feel like As the years have gone on, I would be interested to know if Duff-Tytler at any point during his junior career before he shot up, was he a midfielder? I feel like these ruckmen now who come through, or ruck forwards, played mid earlier on, and that's why they're so good with their ball handling skills, because they've been exposed to doing that, which is a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing. Areas of improvement for Duff-Tytler include his size, physicality, and ruckcraft. If he's to become a number one ruckman, then there is a considerable amount of development that's needed to fast track him, especially as he's going to come up against older, stronger, and more experienced opponents. But that's not really a surprise for ruckman. That's pretty much par for the course, but it's very much, you've got to sort of look into the future and see what he's going to become. And more importantly, with the way the game's traveling, he's going to be a super effective and efficient player for whoever can take him. But there you go. That is the side-by-side comparison. Sullivan Robey, Cooper Duff-Tytler. Who are you taking at pick 3? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe for more. Until the next one, go Tigers.